They chained him, they sold him, they buried him beneath dirt and cane. But when Europe's greatest army marched to re-enslave an island, they found no slave. They found a general. They found Toussaint Louverture. Night falls in Saint-Domingue. Lanterns glow among sugarcane. The crack of a whip. A man bruised kneels in mud. Then he lifts his head, eyes burning with something the masters cannot break. Birth in chains, Toussaint Louverture was born around 1743 on the plantation of Breda, near Cap Français in Saint-Domingue, now Haiti. Encyclopedia Britannica +1. His parents were enslaved Africans. His father, Hippolyte Gaou, was sold to the plantation manager. His mother's name is less clearly documented. He was originally named François-Dominique Toussaint, or sometimes Toussaint Breda. Wikipedia +2 Encyclopedia Britannica +2 From his earliest days, Toussaint showed uncommon qualities. He was known to be intelligent, physically capable, and calm under pressure. Some accounts say he learned herbal medicine, helped care for the livestock, and learned to speak French. Wikipedia +2 Encyclopedia Britannica +2. Though enslaved, he was given certain responsibilities on his master's plantation, like being a driver, kosher, or livestock overseer. These roles exposed him to more of the plantation's workings, the pain, the cruelty, but also the economic and administrative side of the colonial system. Wikipedia +2 Encyclopedia Britannica 22. Freedom and Early Ambitions. In 1776, or thereabouts, Toussaint was manumitted, legally freed from slavery. Encyclopedia Britannica Wikipedia +2. Once free, he married, had children, acquired a small plantation or two, and worked his land. But he never forgot the oppressed state of those still enslaved. His life had given him glimpses into both worlds, one of oppression, another of relative autonomy for freed men. Wikipedia +1 He continued building knowledge in leadership, politics, the rhythms of Saint-Domingue society. He saw that the revolt brewing among the enslaved was more than just spontaneous anger. It was a brewing storm, shaped by ideas from the French Revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. History +13. Revolution ignites in August 1791. A massive slave revolt broke out in the northern province of Saint-Domingue. Plantations burned, owners killed. Terror and hope, they both spread through the sugarcane fields. Toussaint did not immediately join. He observed, waited. History +1, but he could not stay distant for long. He eventually joined the insurgents, bringing his knowledge of land, tactics, languages, and diplomacy. He quickly distinguished himself by his strategic thinking and charisma. History +114. Playing the empires, the political field was as deadly as the battlefield. Spain, France, Britain, and the colonists all used tricks, treaties, shifting loyalties. Toussaint became a master of navigating them. Wikipedia +1 At first, Toussaint allied with the Spanish, who controlled the eastern part of Hispaniola, against the French. He did this because Spain at that time opposed French rule in certain areas. But when in 1794, France's new government abolished slavery in the colonies, Toussaint switched his allegiance to France. He saw that this new policy, abolition of slavery, aligned more with the freedom he fought for. Encyclopedia Britannica +2 History +25. Rise to power switching sides was not simple. It meant earning trust, facing betrayal, defeating both external and internal enemies. Toussaint used guerrilla warfare tactics, the knowledge of plantation geography, and had loyal officers like Dessalines and Christophe under him. Wikipedia +1 By 1796-1797, he had become powerful enough that France recognized him as Governor-General of Saint-Domingue. He restructured plantation labor, tried to revive economy damaged by war, implemented administrative reforms. He promoted trade with Britain and the United States, while keeping the colony productive. Wikipedia +2 Encyclopedia Britannica +2 He was not perfect. Some critics said he retained plantation labor demands, though without slavery, made compromises that upset some of his former allies. But in doing so, he built stability where there had been chaos. Path toward direct conflict with Napoleon. Though Toussaint recognized French authority in some ways, his moves toward autonomy grew more bold. He drafted a constitution in 1801, that named him Governor-General for life, making Saint-Domingue nearly autonomous. He asserted control over the whole island, including the Spanish side, and governed with his own laws in many respects. Wikipedia +2, Encyclopedia Britannica +2. These actions angered the French government and Napoleon. Napoleon saw Toussaint's growing power as a challenge. France sent a large expedition in 1802 to retake control and reimpose colonial rule. Trades, treaties, armies. Toussaint had managed many of these, but France's power was still great. First part ends, the calm before the storm is. 1801 turned into 1802. Toussaint Louverture stood at the height of his power. The man who was once a slave had become more than a general. He was the de facto ruler of Hispaniola, seeking not only freedom for the former enslaved, but a self-governing society, an island protected from European imperialism. He believed that slavery was dead, yet he recognized that the struggle was far from over. Napoleon's forces were coming, treachery and betrayal were waiting, and in his heart Toussaint knew that he had outsmarted many. But could he outsmart the greatest power of all? The French called him a savage. The British called him a devil. The Spanish called him a traitor. But his people, they called him Papa Toussaint, because in a world of kings and empires, he alone was playing the game to win freedom. The island at War 1793, Saint-Domingue had become a furnace. Smoke from burning plantations choked the skies. Slaves were revolting, colonists fleeing, and three empires, France, Spain, and Britain, were fighting to control the world's richest colony. In the northern plains, Toussaint Louverture moved like a shadow between battlefields. He knew every path through the sugarcane, every swamp that could hide a regiment, every mountain that could crush an invading force. But most of all, he knew how to think. While other commanders fought for blood or pride, Toussaint fought for strategy. He watched, waited, and made the impossible choice to fight for the Spanish against the French. The Spanish alliance Spain controlled the eastern part of the island, now the Dominican Republic. They promised freedom and rank to any enslaved Africans who joined their cause. Toussaint accepted. Under the Spanish banner, he trained his men like a professional army. His soldiers wore mismatched uniforms but moved with precision. They called him the Black Spartacus. In one battle, he led his troops through the forests at night, attacking a French garrison before dawn. The French were unprepared, slaves attacking with discipline, coordination, and European tactics. Impossible. Toussaint won, but his loyalty was never to Spain. He listened to the winds of politics because revolution was spreading across the ocean. France abolishes slavery. A message arrived from Paris. The French Republic abolishes slavery in all colonies. That single decree changed everything. Toussaint, who had fought against the French, suddenly saw that France was now the only European power that recognized freedom for black people. Spain and Britain still supported slavery, and so, in a move that shocked everyone, Toussaint switched sides. He abandoned the Spanish army and declared allegiance to France. The Spanish called him a traitor. The French generals distrusted him, but Toussaint didn't care. He was loyal only to freedom and to Haiti. The French soon realized Toussaint's genius. His troops, many former slaves, were fearless, well-disciplined, and utterly loyal to him. Together, they pushed back British forces who had invaded the colony. Toussaint used guerrilla warfare, ambushes in the jungle, surprise night raids, supply line sabotage. British soldiers fell not just to bullets, but to heat, disease, and exhaustion. Within 2 years, Toussaint had outmaneuvered both Spain and Britain, forcing them to retreat. And in 1797, the man who was once a slave became Governor-General of Saint-Domingue. The diplomat Toussaint wasn't just a warrior. He was a diplomat with the mind of a chess master. He reopened trade with Britain and the United States, exporting sugar and coffee in exchange for weapons and supplies. Foreign merchants who once looked down on the black general now bowed to him. Even the United States, led by President John Adams, secretly traded with him, seeing Toussaint as a valuable ally against French influence in the Caribbean. But his greatest skill wasn't diplomacy or warfare. It was control. Toussaint kept order through discipline. He believed freedom without structure would destroy everything they had fought for. He issued strict labor laws. Former slaves had to keep working on plantations, but now they worked for wages, not chains. It was controversial. Some of his followers accused him of restoring slavery. Toussaint replied, "I have given them liberty, but I must teach them to be free." The betrayal of rivals' power creates enemies. Within the French administration, jealous officers plotted against him. One of them, General Edouville, accused Toussaint of trying to become king. At the same time, in the south of the island, a mixed-race leader named André Rigaud challenged Toussaint's authority. Rigaud represented the mulatto elite, freed people of color who wanted power for themselves, not for former slaves. Civil war erupted between Toussaint's army of black soldiers and Rigaud's southern forces. The fighting was brutal. Villages burned, thousands died. But Toussaint's tactics and his generals, Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Henri Christophe, crushed Rigaud's army. By 1800, the island was unified under one leader, Toussaint Louverture. The Constitution of Freedom with the wars over, Toussaint began to build something new. He restructured administration, rebuilt plantations, and restored trade. But his biggest step came in 1801, when he wrote a constitution for Saint-Domingue. It declared, "Slavery is forever abolished. All men are equal before the law. Toussaint Louverture is governor for life. Saint-Domingue is free and self-governing." It was a bold act, too bold. To France, it looked like rebellion. To Toussaint, it was survival. He knew that if he didn't formalize independence, Napoleon would try to re-enslave the island. The shadow of Napoleon in Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte had risen to power. He dreamed of rebuilding France's colonial empire, and to do that, he needed Saint-Domingue, the richest colony in the world. When news of Toussaint's constitution reached Paris, Napoleon's fury was immediate. "What, a black man rules a French colony as if he were a king? I shall destroy him, and with him this Black Republic." Napoleon began preparing an expedition, 30,000 soldiers under his brother-in-law, General Charles Leclerc. Their mission: retake Saint-Domingue and restore slavery. Toussaint had outsmarted empires before, but this time he faced the greatest general of Europe, and he knew the final war for freedom was coming. Toussaint stood on a mountain ridge overlooking Cap Français. Below him, the ocean shimmered with French warships approaching the coast. Behind him stood thousands of black soldiers, farmers, freed slaves, armed and ready. "France taught us the words liberty and equality," he said. "Now they will learn that we remember them." The island that once whispered his name in secret now shouted it aloud. Toussaint Louverture, the man who played empires. 1802. The sea around Saint-Domingue shimmered like polished steel. On the horizon appeared hundreds of French ships, 30,000 soldiers, their white sails gleaming in the sun. At their head was General Charles Leclerc, Napoleon Bonaparte's brother-in-law. His orders were clear: seize the island, capture Toussaint Louverture, restore slavery. But Napoleon had underestimated the man he was about to face. The war returns. When the French fleet arrived, Toussaint didn't attack immediately. He waited, observed, tested their intentions. Leclerc sent messages claiming peace, promising that France had no plans to re-enslave anyone. But Toussaint knew better. He had fought too many wars to believe in the words of empires. He divided his army, Dessalines in the west, Christophe in the north, and his own troops in the mountains. And then, with the precision of a storm, the fighting began. The French entered burning cities, only to find nothing but ash. The Haitians had burned the crops, destroyed bridges, and poisoned wells, denying the invaders food and shelter. It was total war. Christophe's fire. As the French advanced toward Cap Français, General Henri Christophe made a fateful choice. Rather than let the French take the city, he burned it to the ground. Flames rose into the night sky, turning the harbor into a red reflection of hell. French officers stood speechless as their prize turned to smoke. Every house, every storehouse, every plantation, gone. Toussaint's orders were simple. If they wished to conquer the land, give them nothing but ashes. Guerrilla resistance. Toussaint's genius wasn't in grand battles, but in resistance. He fought through ambushes, traps, and scorched earth tactics. The mountains of Haiti became his fortress. The French had muskets and cannons. Toussaint's army had the jungle, the rain, and time. But disease became their greatest ally. Tropical fever tore through French ranks. Thousands died, including some of Leclerc's best officers. The French campaign began to rot from within. The enemy's trick Leclerc realized that he couldn't win by force. So he tried deceit. He sent envoys offering peace. He swore on Napoleon's name that France would respect Toussaint's freedom and maintain emancipation. Toussaint's lieutenants, Dessalines and Christophe, were exhausted. After months of fighting, they began to doubt. They accepted Leclerc's offer of peace. Toussaint hesitated. He knew France's word was poison, but his people were tired, his land bleeding and his generals pressing for a truce. In May 1802, Toussaint agreed to lay down his arms in exchange for peace and security. He retired to his estate in Ennery, hoping to farm in peace with his family. For a brief moment, the island was quiet, but beneath the silence, treachery was brewing. The arrest in June 1802, Toussaint received a message from General Brunet, one of Leclerc's officers. The message invited him to a friendly meeting to discuss agricultural cooperation. Toussaint, ever cautious, brought only a few guards. He arrived politely, trusting the promises of diplomacy. The moment he stepped inside Brunet's quarters, the trap closed. Armed soldiers surrounded him. Toussaint stood still, calm, unreadable. "In betraying me, you have cut down only the trunk of the tree of liberty," he said. "It will spring up again by the roots, for they are many and deep." He was arrested, bound, and placed aboard a French ship. Journey into silence. The voyage across the Atlantic was slow and cruel. Toussaint was treated as a dangerous prisoner, kept in chains even during the night. He didn't scream. He didn't curse. He simply stared out at the horizon, whispering prayers in Creole and Latin. For him, the sea wasn't new. It was the same sea that had once brought him to slavery. Now it carried him away from the freedom he had built. The ship docked in France. From there, Toussaint was taken north to the Fort de Joux, a cold stone fortress in the Jura Mountains near the Swiss border. Imprisoned in the ice, Fort de Joux was built to hold men the world had forgotten. Its walls were thick, its windows narrow. Snow covered the mountains outside. Toussaint, who had commanded armies under the Caribbean sun, now sat in a cell barely large enough to stretch his legs. He was denied visitors, letters, or news of his family. Even his jailers treated him with fear and awe. They called him the old Negro general. He was 59, frail but unbroken. He wrote letters to Napoleon, defending his loyalty, reminding him that he had fought for France's ideals. He never received a reply. The final winter came early that year. Cold winds swept through the cracks of the fortress. Toussaint's health deteriorated. His hands stiffened, his breathing slowed. He was given little food, less fire, and no hope. But even as his body failed, his mind stayed sharp. He wrote one final note to his jailers. "I was born a slave, but nature gave me the soul of a free man." On April 7, 1803, Toussaint Louverture died alone in his cell. The guards found him seated near the window, his face calm. His eyes open toward the mountains. They buried him in an unmarked grave. The echo of his name back in Saint-Domingue. News of his capture and death spread slowly. At first silence, then anger, and then vengeance. His lieutenants Dessalines and Christophe swore that Toussaint's dream would not die. They rallied the black armies once more, this time not for France, but against it. Napoleon's troops, weakened by disease and rebellion, faced a wave of fury they couldn't control. The fire Toussaint lit refused to go out. Toussaint Louverture's life ended in a frozen cell thousands of miles from home. But his spirit remained in every mountain of Haiti, every whisper of resistance. Napoleon thought he had won. But what Toussaint said was true. "You have cut down the trunk of liberty." But the roots run deep. Toussaint Louverture was gone, locked forever in the icy tombs of Fort de Joux. But in Haiti, his spirit had become a storm. The French believed the rebellion would collapse without its leader. They were wrong. Toussaint's death didn't kill the revolution. It gave it purpose. His two most trusted generals, Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Henri Christophe, took command. Both men had once served under him, fought his wars, and learned from his vision. Now they were ready to finish what he started. The silent fury. When news of Toussaint's capture reached the mountains, the reaction wasn't sorrow. It was rage. Dessalines' voice thundered across camps and villages. They took our father. They broke their word. France will pay in blood. The enslaved who had once followed Toussaint rose again. Fields burned. Drums of war echoed through the night. And the cry for vengeance spread from plantation to plantation. Every French garrison became a target. Every colonist who had once wielded a whip now ran in terror. Dessalines had no illusions about peace. He had seen what Napoleon's promises meant. There would be no negotiation, no surrender. Only freedom or death. Napoleon's nightmare, the French commander Leclerc, faced the impossible. He had captured Toussaint, but now the entire island was on fire. Then came something no European army could fight: yellow fever. Within months, disease tore through the French ranks, killing soldiers faster than any bullet. Even Leclerc himself fell ill and died. Napoleon replaced him with General Rochambeau, a man even crueler. Rochambeau believed terror could restore control. He ordered mass executions, hunted rebels with dogs, and drowned captives in the sea. But every act of cruelty only fueled the resistance. Dessalines didn't fight for revenge alone. He fought for a world where no black man would ever be owned again. The war turns by. Late 1802, French control was collapsing. The once mighty European army was now starving, diseased, and trapped in mountain fortresses surrounded by fire. Dessalines, now commander-in-chief, launched his campaign, a war of annihilation. No open fields, no mercy, no retreat. He struck supply lines, burned crops, and captured French strongholds one by one. Christophe held the north while Pétion and other generals cut off reinforcements. Women smuggled weapons in baskets of fruit. Children carried messages through forests. This was no longer a rebellion. It was a nation in arms. The turning of the tide by early 1803, French power was broken. Napoleon's armies in Europe were stretched thin, and his Caribbean empire was bleeding to death. In May, Britain joined the war against France again, blockading the ports of Saint-Domingue. No reinforcements could reach Rochambeau. No food, no medicine. No hope. Dessalines seized the opportunity. He rallied his troops under a new banner, the blue and red flag of Haiti, created by ripping the white out of the French tricolor. It symbolized the birth of a new people, forged from fire and defiance. The battle for independence. The final confrontation came in November 1803, at Vertières, the last French stronghold in the north. Rain fell over the battlefield, turning the ground into red mud. The air stank of gunpowder and death. Dessalines led the charge himself, shouting, "Liberty or death! Drive them into the sea!" The Haitians fought like a force of nature. They had no uniforms, no cannons to match the French, but their will was unbreakable. French soldiers fled, leaving behind their banners and bodies. By evening, the tricolor flag of France lay trampled in the mud. The birth of a nation. On January 1st, 1804, in the city of Gonaives, Dessalines gathered his generals, priests, and people. He stood before them holding the torn flag and declared, "We have paid for this liberty with our blood. Let us vow before heaven and earth never to be enslaved again." The crowd roared as he proclaimed, "Long live Haiti, independent and free forever." It was more than independence. It was a miracle of history, the world's first free black republic. The first nation born from a successful slave revolt. And behind that victory, in every cheer, in every tear of freedom, echoed the name of the man who had begun it all, Toussaint Louverture. The price of freedom independence did not come without scars. The war had destroyed cities, burned fields, and left hundreds of thousands dead. Families were torn apart, and hatred ran deep between the races left behind. Dessalines knew peace would be fragile. He declared himself emperor, hoping to unify the island through power. But the wounds of war and the ghosts of slavery would haunt Haiti for generations. Still, for one shining moment in history, a nation of former slaves stood victorious against the greatest empire on earth. Echoes beyond the sea news of Haiti's victory spread across the world like wildfire. In the Americas, enslaved people whispered the name Haiti like a prayer. In Europe, kings trembled, fearing that freedom might spread beyond their control. Haiti's independence sent shockwaves through every colony. It forced the world to confront an unthinkable truth, that the enslaved were not property, they were people, capable of defeating empires. Napoleon, humiliated and exhausted, abandoned his dreams of a new world empire. Months later, he sold France's North American territories to the United States, the Louisiana Purchase, ending French ambition in the Americas forever. Haiti's fire had reshaped the world. Toussaint's promise, fulfilled though Toussaint Louverture never saw this day, his words had come true. The tree of liberty he planted had grown, watered by the blood of his people. From the ashes of slavery rose a nation that refused to bow, and every Haitian, free and proud, knew whose dream had lit the flame. In every song of freedom, in every flag that waved above the mountains, his spirit whispered, "I was born a slave, but nature gave me the soul of a free man." Haiti had won, but victory is never quiet. The flames that burned the plantations had gone out. The gunfire had faded into the mountains, and for the first time in centuries, the island breathed in the air of freedom. Yet, in that silence, there was a question: what now? Toussaint Louverture was gone. Dessalines ruled as emperor. The French had been cast into the sea. But the dream Toussaint carried, of a free, equal, and prosperous black nation, was only beginning to be tested. The ghost in the wind everywhere in Haiti, people spoke his name like a prayer. Old women told stories of the man who rode with lightning in his eyes. Children played pretending to be Papa Toussaint, fighting invisible French soldiers in the dust. Farmers, as they plowed the soil, would whisper, "He is gone." But the wind still carries his spirit. They believed Toussaint had become one with the island itself, in the rustle of the sugarcane, in the crash of waves against the cliffs, in every heart that refused to bow. He had not just fought for freedom, he had redefined what it meant to be human. The betrayal of the world, but the world was not ready for Haiti. The European empires looked upon the new Black Republic not with respect, but with fear. They called Haiti a threat to civilization. They banned trade, isolated it from the world, and spread lies that freedom had made the island savage. The United States, still holding millions in slavery, refused to recognize Haiti for decades. France demanded that Haiti pay reparations, 150 million francs, for the loss of their property, the very slaves who had freed themselves. It was one of history's cruelest ironies. A nation born in chains was forced to buy its freedom again, and yet the Haitians paid, not with joy but with pride, because no price was too high for dignity. Toussaint's vision lives on even in death. Toussaint Louverture's ideas became immortal. He had dreamed of a society where color did not define worth, where men were not measured by birth but by courage. He had preached unity between black, mixed race, and white Haitians, a vision far ahead of his time. He had studied Enlightenment philosophy, absorbed the words of Rousseau and Voltaire, and reshaped them through the fire of his own struggle. The Europeans spoke of liberty, equality, fraternity. Toussaint made those words real. He took them out of books and carved them into the earth with blood, and today the fear he inspired Napoleon once called him the most dangerous man in the world. He was right, because Toussaint proved that the empire's greatest weapon, fear, could be broken. His revolution sent shivers across the Atlantic. In Cuba, Jamaica, Brazil, whispers spread, "If Haiti can be free, why not us?" Slaveholders fortified their plantations, terrified that their own slaves might hear of the Black Spartacus. Toussaint became a legend, a nightmare to tyrants, a symbol to the oppressed. Every revolution that came after, in Latin America, Africa, even Europe, echoed his defiance. The philosopher of freedom Toussaint Louverture was more than a warrior. He was a thinker, a strategist, and a philosopher in chains. In his letters from prison, he wrote words that transcended time. "I was born a slave, but nature gave me the soul of a free man." He understood that liberty was not just an act, it was a state of mind. Even locked in a freezing cell in France, he knew he had already won. because his body could be captured, but his idea could not. He once told a French officer, "In overthrowing me, you have cut down only the trunk of the tree of liberty. It will spring up again from the roots, for they are numerous and deep. Those roots would grow into nations." The seed that changed the world after Haiti's victory. Movements for independence erupted across Latin America. Simón Bolívar, the great liberator, once sought refuge in Haiti, and from there, launched his revolution to free South America. Bolívar himself said, "Haiti was the first to show us the path of liberty." From the Caribbean to Africa, Toussaint's flame spread, lighting fires that no empire could extinguish. His revolution had rewritten the laws of power. It proved that no race was born to rule and none born to serve. The man and the myth in. The centuries that followed, Toussaint Louverture became more than a man. He became a myth. Poets sang of him as the Black Moses. Painters depicted him with halos of light, swords raised against thunderclouds. In Harlem, in Port-au-Prince, in London and Paris, his face appeared on murals and banners. His name was spoken beside those of Washington and Bolívar. But unlike them, his victory had no foreign backing. No armies of wealth behind it, only faith, courage, and fire. He had risen from the fields of sugarcane to challenge the most powerful man in the world, and he had won. The island of fire and hope Haiti struggled in the years after. Poverty, embargo, political turmoil. The world never forgave it for its audacity. Yet through every hardship, the Haitian people held on to one truth, that their freedom was self-earned. They owed it to no king, no conqueror, no savior. Only to themselves, and in the heart of every Haitian child, in songs sung under starlight, in prayers whispered over graves, the story of Toussaint Louverture lived on. He was not a ghost to them. He was a mirror, reminding them what they were capable of. The eternal flame today, 2 centuries later. His name still burns in the memory of the world, Toussaint Louverture, the man who walked out of slavery and stood eye to eye with Napoleon, the general who united the broken, defied the impossible, and carved a free nation from chains. The story of Haiti is not just his story, it is the story of human will itself, a reminder that even the smallest spark, in the darkest night, can set an empire aflame.